Luke 10:38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, uh, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better. It will not be taken away from her." John 11:17 to 27. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die." "Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." As we read this Bible passage, we cannot help but contrast these two sisters, Martha and Mary. Martha is in the kitchen preparing for the upcoming meal. Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to him. I must admit, if I were in Martha's shoes, I too would be jealous of my sister Mary. Why am I left to do all this work of preparation for the meal? Mary usually helps me in the kitchen. Why can't she help me? "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." Luke 10, verse 40. As we read the New Testament, we see that Martha has two siblings, Mary and Lazarus. The three of them feel honored that the Rabbi Jesus accepts their invitation to come to their house at Bethany. When you invite Jesus into your house, you also need to bear in mind that Jesus has 12 disciples and other followers. Therefore, you not only need to feed Jesus and his 12 disciples, you also need to make sure that his whole group is looked after. This is a lot of work. Jesus tells Martha that Mary has chosen what is better, listening to Jesus. Is Jesus saying then that Mary's work in preparing the meal is less important? Everyone should be sitting down and listening to Jesus? However, if we look at Jesus' words, we see that Jesus is not correcting Martha because she is preparing the meal. "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Luke 10:41 to 42. Some Bible students tell us that there is something else at play here in this story of Martha and Mary. The Gospel of Luke does not tell us about Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha. It is the Gospel of John that tells us about Lazarus. And all three of them live in the same house. Therefore, where is Lazarus, as Martha complains that Mary is not helping her? I believe that Lazarus is with the other men who are sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to him. This is first century Israel. The roles for women and men are quite distinct. It is the men who lead in the community, engage in business, and go to war. It is the men who teach in the synagogue. Women are confined to the kitchen and other domestic roles. Therefore, Mary, in deciding to listen to Jesus, is doing something that is not usually associated with women. She is not fulfilling the traditional role expected of her in her culture. As she sits at the feet of Jesus, she's learning to become a leader and a teacher in her community. Jesus does not correct Mary and ask her to help her sister Martha in the kitchen. Instead, Jesus accepts Mary's presence with the man, sitting at his feet and listening to him. Jesus most probably learned about women's participation in the teaching ministry from his mother Mary. When we look at Jesus' mother Mary, we see that Mary herself knew a lot of the Old Testament scriptures. As we read Mary's Magnificat, the song she sings to celebrate her pregnancy in Luke 1, we see that she knows a lot about the Old Testament. She must have learned this from her teachers in the synagogue at Nazareth. I do not believe Martha's work of preparing for the meal is not important for Jesus. He does not tell Mary to stop being in the kitchen and to start sitting at his feet. Churches will not be able to survive today if it were not for volunteers who help in the ministries of the church. It is not only the pastor who does ministry. Ministry is not confined to the pastor preaching on a Sunday morning. You are involved in ministry, whether helping in the kitchen, teaching Sunday school, serving in the audiovisual center, greeting on Sunday mornings, or singing in the praise team. God has blessed the church with all kinds of people who have different talents and spiritual gifts. The key thing is that they are serving God in whatever field they are called to. However, sometimes serving God can be a lonely experience. We feel that we are like Martha, being all alone in the kitchen. This is certainly the experience of Tim and his wife as they help at a cleanup day at a retreat center. He shares his experiences in a devotional journal. Recently, our local spiritual renewal group held a clean day at camp. At the camp we use for our weekend retreats. Because we are new to the group, my wife and I did not know what to expect. I was surprised to see only 5 people show up to work. We got our instructions, grabbed our rakes and brooms, and went to work. As I began to rake the large camp, I started to feel as I imagined Martha felt, asking, "Where are all the others? Why are they not helping?" Suddenly, God's grace washed over me with a calm that made me smile. I realized that God had chosen the people who would be here. I felt sure that God was using the gifts and talents of other members of our community to do God's work somewhere else. I also thought that some of the others were probably, like Mary, sitting at the feet of Jesus. Tim gives us a good summary. His wife and he are cleaning up at the retreat center. God is using the gifts and talents of other members of the community to work somewhere else. And some of the others are probably like Mary, sitting at the feet of Jesus. There are some people who say that it is more important to be a Mary sitting at Jesus' feet than a Martha serving in the kitchen. I don't think that this is Jesus' message. We must remember that this story of Martha and Mary comes right after the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan does many practical things to help the wounded man on the road. Jesus is telling Martha that even if she is serving in the kitchen, she should be doing it with a particular attitude, choosing the most important thing in life. She should be following Jesus, whether in the kitchen or sitting at his feet. "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." What is this key thing that Mary has chosen that will not be taken away from her? I believe that it is because Mary has chosen to follow Jesus. This means that to follow Jesus at that particular moment, Mary sits at the feet of Jesus. There will be other opportunities to serve in the kitchen with Martha later. Jesus is not correcting Martha because she is in the kitchen and not sitting at his feet. Jesus says that Martha is worried and upset about many things. Jesus is concerned that Martha is too caught up with the responsibility of preparing for the meal. She has forgotten the main reason for her preparation. There is only one thing that is needed in life. It is connecting with Jesus, whether she's preparing the food or sitting at his feet. It is worshiping Jesus. I believe that if Mary keeps on sitting at Jesus' feet and forgets that her sister needs her help, Jesus would have sent her back to the kitchen to help Martha. The most important thing in life is to connect with Jesus and worship him, whether in the kitchen or sitting at his feet. Why is it so important to connect with Jesus and worship him? The answer lies in what Jesus says to Martha later in John 11. Unfortunately, Lazarus, Martha's brother, dies. Jesus does not get there in time to heal Lazarus while he is sick. Lazarus has already been in the tomb for 4 days when Jesus gets to them. This is what Jesus says to Martha. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. John 11:25-27. It is so important to connect with Jesus and worship him because Jesus is the resurrection and the life. They who believe in Jesus will live even though they die. Martha declares this to Jesus in front of the tomb of Lazarus. Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Martha is upset and worried about many things. She is too engrossed with the details of needing to feed a crowd of people in the kitchen. God does want Martha to serve God to the best of her abilities, but there is one thing that is most important in her life, whether she's preparing things in the kitchen or sitting at the feet of Jesus. Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God who has come into the world. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Jesus has come to bring salvation to Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. Without Jesus, we would be all lost. Therefore, whether we are in the kitchen or in the sanctuary, we worship Jesus. He is the Messiah, the Son of God who has come into the world. We worship Jesus whether on Sunday mornings at the church facilities or on Monday mornings at work. This story of Martha and Mary has significance for us during this time of the pandemic. If we were to be honest, most of us are Martha. We are upset and worried about too many things. However, because of the pandemic, we are forced to be Mary. God compels us to sit at the feet of Jesus rather than work in the kitchen. As we arise out of the pandemic, we realize that we have developed many spiritual practices during this COVID-19 crisis. We have had more time to pray and to read the Bible. We have had more time to reflect over our relationship with Jesus. Monica lives in South Africa. However, recently she was involved in an accident and had to spend time at home. She reflects over her time at home. I've been blessed with good health all my life. Recently, though, because of an accident, I have not been as active as usual. My inactivity brought to mind a favorite Bible passage, the story of Jesus visiting the home of Martha and Mary. I had always understood that Jesus chose the home of Martha and Mary because it was well known as a place of fellowship and hospitality. Jesus wanted as many people as possible to gather there to hear him. I saw Martha as the homemaker who wanted everything perfect for Jesus. I had always thought Jesus should have asked Mary to help Martha in the preparations so that Martha too could have sat at his feet and listened. Because of my new limitations, I have been unable to offer that kind of hospitality to our friends. But reading again this story from Luke's Gospel, I saw the wisdom of just being ready to listen. I can't imagine keeping Jesus waiting while the scones baked or while I worked on the vacuuming. I am due for some time of inactivity. I'm due for some more time of inactivity, but I'm ready to sit at Jesus' feet, to listen and learn from him. That is my main purpose as his follower. Perhaps as we look back at our lives during the pandemic, we can be grateful that we developed a merry perspective in our spiritual lives. We learned many spiritual practices to remain close to God while being at home. When we return to a life free from the pandemic, may we do so as a Mary. May we choose what is better. May we choose to be Mary in a Martha world. Amen.